as a Salesforce trainer for both end users, but also upcoming admin and developers, as well as a coach and mentor, a lot of people I come across often ask me, what should my learning journey be? What is my learning path? And so in today's Salesforce Unraveled, I will tell you a little bit of what I tell those people, what I tell my mentees, and what I tell my students about how I look at a learning path and how I see that come into play for people. So you get a bit of free advice today from me. And so, how do you become a Salesforce expert? First of all, depends how you come across it, of course. Maybe you heard somebody talk about it, a friend, maybe your business that you're moving into have been using it for a while, and all of a sudden you come across it as maybe an end user. Maybe, your business is start implementing it and you actually have been really involved from the beginning. And so there's different ways how you roll into the Salesforce world. And it depends also then on you what you want to do. Now, some people don't want to do anything and just stay a user. Perfectly fine, but that's not really the group I'm talking about here. In this session, I really want to talk about things like what do you do if you want to become an admin, developer, etc. How do you approach this? The challenge with Salesforce is it's constantly evolving. There's a lot to it. And that means there's also no dedicated learning path as such. Yes, if you want to become, say, a developer, you're expected to know certain things. You expect to know how certain technologies work. If you want to become an architect, there is a certain path that guides you through it, which is based on, previous learning, previous experience, and then do, of course, a range of tests to get there. But how you get that is for every person different. And it all relies on how your path is. Some people might have a very smooth path. They might be lucky. They get thrown into it. They get maybe a fantastic project where they are. There's a lot of things happening, really involved. Maybe you have a lot of free time outside work to spend on it, or get time at work to do it. Other people might just be very busy and have more bumps on the road. Maybe they have at home not that much time to study. Maybe they're moving countries, moving jobs. There's all kinds of reasons why some people have a very smooth path and other people might have a very bumpy path. And that is then like, how do you approach it? So therefore it means that you can't say, okay, say if you're new to the Salesforce world, you want to become an admin. If you start today, you are an admin in a year's time. There is no way of saying that because you don't know what the path is. That is really individual. The same is, they start to ask things like, what kind of certifications, what order of certification, what should you do? What is the benefit of them? To me, certs are a bit of a tenuous topic, so to speak. Certs are important because they tell you what knowledge you have. They basically are a bit like a driving test. I can drive, and I have a pass that basically tells me I can drive. Doesn't necessarily tell me how good I drive. Doesn't only tell me how I can drive on the different roads that are there. It just tells me I know how a car functions and I know the rules of the world. Basically. Same sort of a certifications. It tells you you have past knowledge, that you have a certain theoretical idea about Salesforce. However, to be able to pass certification, you really have to have sort of hands-on experience. Now, if you're new and maybe you're not in a company that uses it, you have Trailhead where you can really get to grips with the system. The same is with a number of certifications. Some people really want to get as many as they can to really, for whatever reason. Maybe they think they progress better, maybe a bit of pride to say, I have them all. To me, certifications, they are about what do they do to you? What is the benefit for you to having a certification? If, for example, you have no interest whatsoever in Marketing Cloud, no interest whatsoever, you think Salesforce is great, but Marketing Cloud, nah, I don't want to know about it. Why should you go for a Marketing Cloud certification if you're really not interested in it? No real benefit. Maybe the same, you want to be a developer and that's the only thing you do. You love the coding, that's the only thing you're interested in. Maybe why should you do the business analyst certification? Maybe not really that relevant. It might be nice to have. but maybe not that relevant. So for me, it's all about certifications are establishing the learning you have done. It is basically after you've done a certain job for a while, you want to start saying, yeah, I actually know my stuff. That is where I see certifications come in play. For me, hands-on experience is far, far more important. The challenge with all of this is that, like I said earlier, Salesforce is very fast moving. It's constantly changing. New areas are coming out, new certifications are coming out. And so where is your end path? That is basically, you can't say, okay, at this point, I know everything. Even the people at the top, they're constantly learning. And so with your learning path, is that what you have to take into account? What you learn this month, for whatever reason, maybe for a certification, etc., in half a year's time, maybe some that's out of date, or you need to learn new stuff. None of my other videos, I talked about automation in jargon, I talked about flows. Flows has been something that has been relatively new, has been there, but they're really pushing it. They take some automation away, some new automation is coming in. So also you have to do new learning. So if you have done your admin certification, say 2 years ago, and your business don't really use flows, you might not really care about it. But if you're currently studying for the admin certification, you have to know how they work because they rely heavily in that certification about flows. And so therefore, how you plan your path and how you learn will in a way dictate where you get to. And you also have to figure out, do I want to keep up? How much do I need to keep up? It is important, of course, to know all the latest stuff. It is important to know some of the terminology, but how much you need to know. If you don't use it, why would you? For example, I'm a trainer. That's my core, as well as mentoring, coaching. And so for me, I have a limited interest in developer. It's not my thing. I don't really understand it. I don't have the time to understand it. So for me, when I see flows, for example, yes, I know how they work and very top line, but because I don't use them day-on-day basis, they're sort of simmering in the background. I keep up so I know what they use and I know what the functionality is and I can explain it to people. But actually sitting down and building this whole fantastic suite of flows for the customer, it's going to take me a while before I can actually do that. And that is when, for me, the learning part is when something is there, when you come across something, how important is that to establish that? For me, what is really important throughout the whole process, and I think people don't do that enough, is actually every now and then take that break and actually say, okay, I'm learning new stuff, evolving, coming across new opportunities whatsoever, but actually, where am I? Am I still on a path that I'm enjoying? Do I still do things on a day-to-day that I am enjoying? If yes, fantastic, keep going. If not, what changes do I need to make to go to the next step? And like I said earlier about no two paths are the same. Like I said, if you become an admin, say if you start studying today, do you have an admin in a year's time? Maybe not, because I would say after half a year, reflect and say, okay, what I'm learning, what I'm doing, am I still enjoying that? Am I still on track on the target I set myself? If not, do I need to reset my target? Obviously, when you are in big businesses, and you work full time, of course, you have your yearly appraisals, and often this kind of learning is done in yearly appraisals. But if you do this kind of stuff because you want to, you don't necessarily set yourself yearly, quarterly goals. And I think that would actually really help. So find yourself, what do you want to do? Where do you want to get to? And put realistic targets in place. Does it make sense to say by the end of the year, I want to do X, Y, and Z? Do I want to get by the end of the year, maybe Ranger stages, which is like 100 batches within Salesforce? Well, if you are in September, October, and you have already 6 to 17 batches, probably next to 30 can work. If you have none, then to create 100 might be a little bit less realistic. What is an additional benefit, I think, is also trying to find a sparring partner, somebody who can help you. Find a mentor, find somebody who can guide you on the path, who can give you tips and advice without basically hounding you and saying, okay, well, you have to do it. Sometimes you just need somebody who just gives you a gentle nudge. Does that make sense? But you don't necessarily want somebody to say, okay, you have to do this, have to do this, have to do this, because otherwise you can't. For me in the Salesforce world, there is not much that you can't. It's just certain stuff will make it easier for you. But if you don't do something, it doesn't necessarily mean you can't do it. You might just need to find a different path. And with all of this learning, what is also important is not just to reflect every now and then, but also look around and say, okay, my path leads me to my top that I define. This is my mountain I want to climb. But do every now and then look at others and say, okay, what can you learn from them? What have they done? Have they done certain things? Don't look at it, oh, wish I had, but maybe as a tip, like, okay, they have done X, Y, and Z, and that helped them to do X, Y, and Z, and to maybe become a certain expert in an area. And so see what you can learn from that, and see if you can find somebody that you can take along on the path. I hope you found this section useful in my Salesforce Unraveled. Hopefully you learned a little bit about a learning path. Whilst you're doing all that studying, unfortunately with Salesforce, it's a lot about sitting behind the computer and especially thinking about learning paths and reflection. I think the best way to do it is actually go out for a walk and actually just think, let your brain do its work. You don't want to constantly be busy. Just every now and then go for a walk and say, okay, think about what was my path, what was my journey, what's my planning, how am I doing? Do I do well? Do I do not so well? And where should I go? Yeah, really, outside some fresh air always really helps. With that, I'll say thank you for listening today. Do the usual social media, comment, like, subscribe. Any ideas you have, any tips you have on your learning path, any questions you have, any comments on any other Salesforce Unraveled sessions you want me to do, please drop your comments, and I'm looking forward to see you next time.